Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a well-respected professional and an author from Texas, USA, Mr. Sri Kaza. Sri, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Ashutosh.
Sri is an author of a book titled Unconvention, a small business strategy guide. He has developed the Underdog principles, which is a strategic framework that helps small businesses leverage their inherent advantage of positioning, proximity, and purpose. He's a former McKinsey partner and a small business advocate. So, Sri, you began your career at McKinsey advising some of the world's largest corporations. What lessons from that period have stayed with you in your later entrepreneurial work?
Well, that was very formative. A lot of the things I learned and I was able to accomplish there are foundational to how I see the world today and how I help business leaders get things done. At McKinsey, I got a chance to go work on really complicated problems in very
Hmm.
big organizations. And one of the most important things they don't teach you in your MBA when you're learning about, actually, they do try to teach this to you in the MBA, but when you're learning about business strategy and you're learning about operations and execution, and what they don't really help you see is what does it take to lead people and what does it take to motivate the individuals on your team to collaborate, to kind of find common ground. At McKinsey, the work was, sometimes easier because you could highlight profitability, you'd highlight growth.
Hmm.
And if everybody at the company was kind of motivated to kind of pursue growth, you could convince people to kind of move in a direction. But you find, especially in large organizations, that like one level, two levels away from the CEO or the board, that's not people's motivation for being at the company.
Yeah.
Like they're not there intrinsically to serve shareholders.
Hmm.
So, I learned a lot more about, people than I did about business while I was there, but it was still a fantastic place to practice the strategy that I'd learned a lot about and see how it could impact not just big businesses, but small businesses. And then from there, I still have fantastic frameworks and ways to look at business that I share with any person interested in leading businesses.
Hmm. Well said. How has your personal definition of success evolved over the course of
Oh,
your career, moving from billion-dollar impact in corporates to hands-on work with small business owners?
I don't know this is true of everybody who kind of pursues something really, really difficult. Sometimes you get lost in why you're pursuing a
Yeah.
particular objective.
Hmm.
And for me, I'd achieved a few different things. I hadn't really thought too much about why I was pursuing them.
Hmm.
Not that it was the wrong thing. I really enjoyed, when I became a partner at McKinsey, when I got to go and do the work I was going to, I really enjoyed that role. And I really enjoyed what I was doing when I got there. But I had no clue that that was what
Hmm.
I would be doing or what that would be like when I got on that track. So, like sometimes you just, people think it's success.
Hmm.
So you agree with the other people around you, and you just kind of put your head down and you go after it.
Hmm.
Um, I think, today, as I look at where I want to be and what kind of success I want to have, it's probably a few different things. But the thing that really I'm most excited about now is impact on other people, and very specifically impact on the entrepreneurial spirit with other people.
Hmm. Hmm.
I really want to see more people have confidence in their own abilities and take some risk to go and bring something different to the world.
Hmm.
And I'm not specifically talking about the Silicon Valley startup type risk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not for everybody. And there's not going to be that many people who
Correct.
could turn into a new billion-dollar company. But can you
Hmm.
build a business that is sustainable for you, that brings something that you care about to the world, right? Feeds
Hmm.
your family, takes care of, your lifestyle. Like that's real and that's achievable. And
Hmm.
that's a lot better than having a boss, or at least in my opinion, a lot better than having a boss. So,
Hmm.
I want to see impact on people. I want to see that entrepreneurial spirit kindled in more people. To
Well said.
me, that's impact.
And what really motivated you to leave the corporate consulting work and dedicate yourself to small businesses? And you've given me part of the response a few minutes back.
Yeah, so it's more of an evolution than it was kind of a meaningful. pivot. It was I had in my time at McKinsey consulted with a few very large businesses that
Mm-hmm.
were founded by that current CEO. So I got to meet these founders who are entrepreneurs at heart.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough for me sometimes because I would work with them and I would give them very logical, fact-based, really clear observations that at least I agreed with, and they would be dismissive of things. Um, but somehow they would still choose directions that worked for their business and were successful. And, I was curious, how could I know that I've got the right answer, see a guy kind of go against the grain anyway and be
Mm-hmm.
successful? And I ended up leaving McKinsey to go work for one because I'm like, look, what you're suggesting to do sounds insane, but you seem to have a lot of confidence that you can do it,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to be part of it. And so,
Yeah.
so I did, and we were successful in that first rev. This was I left McKinsey to join a man named Tor Hagen. He was the founder of Viking River Cruises,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the chairman of that company. And he wanted to go build an ocean cruise for his
Mm-hmm.
passengers. Seems great. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? That costs $500 million, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a handful of river cruises. How are you going to possibly do that? Well, we've got to convince enough people, probably 2 years worth of people, to sail on the ship, get deposits from them,
Mm-hmm.
then convince the bank that we've got a business, and then we'll go get the funds to go start building the ship that we've already sold. So very backwards thinking, but
Mm-hmm.
ambitious
Mm-hmm.
and difficult. And I was just so enthralled with the boldness of the idea.
Correct.
Yeah, hopped on board. And then from there, a taste of entrepreneurship, a taste of, you know, being able to say, look, I'm going to try to do something that's not kind of clear and reasonable, but like
Mm-hmm.
I believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what got me, stepped into entrepreneurship.
Amazing.
Yeah, and
Well
then
said.
over time, I started running different businesses that worked with small businesses, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where I kind of start to see there's a lot
Fascinating.
of people out there like that.
Fascinating. And therefore, that now logically leads me to your book, Unconvention, a small business strategy guide. What was the inspiration to write your book?
Yeah, so at the time, I started thinking about writing something or collecting the stories that are in this book. It was in the US, it was 2020, 2021. We had just gone through COVID,
Mm-hmm.
where I was at a business. I had just become the CEO of a business that had been lending to small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And our livelihood was based on these small businesses being open and paying us back. And they were all shut down during COVID. And so it crippled our business. We had to shrink dramatically. And we had a couple of choices on how do we survive, and what do we do with, whatever little funds we have left or
Mm-hmm.
whatever little funds are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was amazed by the board's response to the idea. But the idea that I had was, why don't we take it easy on everybody who's still operating? Reach
Mm-hmm.
out to them, reduce what they need to pay us,
Mm-hmm.
and do our best to keep them alive. And one, that's our mission. That's what we said we're going to do. We're here to help these small businesses. Two, we're in trouble if we do that. I understand. Cash isn't going to come back as fast. Our creditors are
Mm-hmm.
going to be on the hook, and we're going to have to manage a couple of different things differently. We're probably going to have to,
Right.
shrink ourselves more. Um, but if you do this, you're doing the right thing for these small businesses. And not only that, they're your customers. So when you do try to reopen and start doing things again, you kind of want to have customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that logic and just doing the right thing, even though it put us at a greater risk of default and a greater risk of going out of business ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by my board who was supportive. They said, yes, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So as we did that, I spent time trying to learn a little bit more about these businesses that survived, the ones that, we helped out and they got back on and came
Mm-hmm.
back to us as customers down the road. I started collecting their stories. And I take my like McKinsey analytical perspective,
Yeah.
and we were a fintech, and we are a fintech, and we had all this fantastic data. So I said, hey, you know what? I've got this great structured data. I've got
Mm-hmm.
business strategy for every single one of these 50,000 businesses that had come to us. I've got tons of data.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I analyze it and show the world what good strategy looks like for small businesses?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in the data. I mean, there's a little couple of nuggets, but like it wasn't about the data at all. You go in there and everybody's doing all these things. And I found so many people who were doing things that just didn't make sense to me from the outside in,
Mm.
but they were still successful. And it reminded me of some of those, very successful entrepreneurs who I'd worked with who had been told they were wrong so many times, they stopped listening to other people.
Mm.
And I see these outliers, I call them my outliers because they didn't look like they listened to anybody. But really what they were doing is they're listening to their customers, right? They're following their kind of particular purpose. These are
Yeah.
the proximity and the purpose in that underdog principles. And they had a particular positioning that was unique. Like their
Mm.
customers saw something special in that. And
Yeah.
because of that unique relationship and that unique offering, the customers that they had before COVID did not want to lose them during COVID. So they went
Mm.
out of their way to support them. They went out of their way to maybe order takeout from the sit-down restaurant or buy gift cards from the salon that was closed, but they knew
Mm.
they were going to patronize again when they opened. Or just doing even simpler things like doing video workouts when, a video workout doesn't make any sense. But if you
Yeah.
care about your personal trainer and you want them to stay employed, then you go on and you do those things.
Mm.
So you see that behavior because these small businesses, you really leaned on these three principles.
Mm. Amazing. Your book also challenges the idea that small businesses should copy big businesses. Why do you think this mindset has persisted so strongly?
Now, one of my frustrations with the kind of space on entrepreneurship is our focus on the outlying winners,
Mm.
right? Like the Facebooks or the open AIs of the world who have, just grown dramatically and have
Yeah.
dominated. They win because they bring something, supremely unique to the market that hasn't been there before
Mm.
and have applicability across the globe, and they burn millions, if not billions of dollars today, probably going to start burning trillions of dollars to kind of win over the entire market.
Correct.
And then once they're there, then they can take their prices up and monopolize
Yeah.
the world. But that's all a function of you can do this if you have scale. So if you pursue scale, then you make a lot of other compromises. You go after more vanilla, you go after more mainstream. You go and do something that appeals to everybody, but
Mm.
doesn't maybe make certain people fall in love. The small business has this ability to have customers that love them, that care
Mm.
about them.
Mm. Mm.
I told you about how people would order takeout from their
Yeah.
favorite restaurants. I mean, nobody's out there trying to order takeout from some big chain because
Hmm.
they're trying to keep them alive. They don't care, right?
Mm.
They know that chain's going to be around, so they're not sitting there worrying.
Mm.
But there's a love and a connection for the small business if you pursue it. If you don't, then you will struggle because you can never achieve the scale of the big
Mm.
guys. You don't have the personality of the small ones.
Very interesting. You spoke a few minutes back about the underdog principles, which are positioning, proximity, and purpose. Among the three, which principle do you think small businesses struggle with the most and why?
Hmm. At different times, at different places.
Hmm.
But I would say small business owners, um, I think they struggle the most with that positioning.
Hmm.
And so let me tell you a little bit about the first two and then why the,
Yeah.
the third one
Yeah.
is hard. So yeah, proximity is, reflecting your customer's needs, empathizing with your customer in your day-to-day decisions.
Yeah.
Many small businesses, not all of them, interact with the customers every day. They see them, they know that what they're going through.
Hmm.
And this isn't an easy thing to go think like them when you're making your decisions, but you have to understand how they impact.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good at that. Sometimes people oversight that. Purpose is one where is another one they struggle with sometimes. It's more about making sure that you check in with your purpose and you just remember it.
Hmm.
I have stories of people who said, I got into this to be my own boss and then found out, I've got way more bosses than I ever wanted, right? Or I got into this because I wanted to make it rich,
Yeah.
but, now I've got a good business, but I'm not operating the right way because I'm still aiming to make it rich when I'm actually kind of happy with blah, blah, blah. Like,
Hmm.
so checking in and knowing your purpose is very important too. But positioning is one of the most difficult ones because and what I argue for in positioning is pick the customers you want and pick the customers you don't want.
Hmm.
And if you are doing your positioning well, there will be customers that don't want you.
Mm.
And that's really hard for any small business to say, I don't need to get any smaller. I need
Mm.
more customers.
Yeah.
How do you go draw lines? Or how do you go do something that makes you less appealing or look too niche or look too small? And there's a real, I mean, look, there's real art and a balance to this,
Mm.
but you get more from customer love than customer count.
Mm.
And as you think about who you are or who you're trying to be, you've got to find a place that is unique to everybody else.
Mm.
And if you're trying to grow, some of my examples in the book, positioning is sometimes very easy to go and say, look, I'm a pizza place, and I'm a pizza place on this in this part of town and on this set of streets. And so I don't compete with the pizza place that sells the same kind of pizza,
Mm.
on the other side of town.
Yeah.
Great. So you got a particular style, maybe it's New York pizza or whatever it is, and your location. Those
Mm.
may be your positioning. I use the word position.
Hmm.
Physical position is very important in
Yeah.
many small businesses. But I mean, the idea is embrace that.
Mm.
Be the neighborhood pizza place. Embrace your neighborhood, right?
Mm.
If you have a particular unique style, but there's three other people with that same style, then guess what? You're not really that unique, right? Or if there is something unique about your style and people understand it and can embrace it and enjoy it, then go ahead and
Mm.
promote that and
Sure.
make sure that you lean into it.
Sure. Sure. Well said. How do these principles interact with each other? Is one more foundational than the others?
Well, what I did in the book and in my research was I
Mm-hmm.
looked at strategies, the MBA kind of strategies,
Mm-hmm.
pricing strategy, go-to-market strategy, operation strategy. And I laid out what a big business would do in each of those things.
Mm.
And then, in my analysis of these small businesses, when I looked at what they did, they were failing at what I thought were the right choices in these strategies, but somehow they succeeded. And when you look under the covers, what you see is it's whichever strategy you're trying to work on your pricing,
Mm.
for example, pricing. Um, when they recognize their unique positioning, their value should be maybe potentially higher
Right.
than what they're pricing at. And so
Mm.
look at your pricing strategies off, what's going on. You dig under it and you realize it's purpose in their case. They're not pricing to the max because they don't need to earn as much profit as they expected.
Right.
I spoke with one, he's a developer who does work online. He had 5-star ratings, and we did some analysis to see that he should be pricing at like 80 bucks an hour, or I don't know, maybe, 80 bucks a service, but he was pricing it lower, even though his peer group was pricing higher. And so I said, hey, why are you doing this? Right. He goes, look, first of all, people will tip me. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with the service being a little lower. But more importantly, when I'm priced here and I have these ratings,
Mm.
I get my choice in work. And he's fulfilling purpose. He's not just fulfilling profit.
Mm.
So he's getting his choice. He gets to work on more interesting things. And that in fact, his price feeds his star rating. So that's an interesting strategy. It does not make sense from a big corporate perspective because
Yeah.
you would never be leaving money on the table,
Mm.
but it absolutely keeps him fulfilled and satisfied by delivering on his purpose.
Very interesting. Sri, many small business owners feel overwhelmed with the work that they're doing. How can they apply your framework without feeling it's one more thing to do?
Oh, my goodness. That's right. Uh, I think the purpose of the framework is to help them figure out where they want to focus.
Mm.
And you don't have to go read a whole book to get there. You can go to my website and download the principles and a quick primer.
Hmm.
Here's the hard part. You have to get away from your business.
Correct.
You have to read and think and be separate from it for a moment.
Mm.
And I recommend you do this at least once a year, if not 4 times a year, is to go back and say, okay, who am I trying to be? Think about my
Mm.
positioning,
Yeah.
right? What do my customers want of me, right?
Hmm.
Your proximity. And then why do I want to do this?
Mm.
That why do I want to do this? I'm amazed by how many people who run businesses forget to ask that question for 10
Hmm.
years. They get started, they get going, and they don't really say, wait a minute, my life is a different place. I've got kids now. I've got this going on, blah, blah, blah. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? I got to the
Mm.
success that I thought I was going to get to, And now I'm in a place that maybe I'm enjoying, maybe I'm not, but I don't even know what I'm chasing.
Hmm.
And that can change. Your life changes, and
Yeah.
your life and your business are so intertwined when you're a small business owner that you've got to step back and ask these questions. And there's simple questions. Doing the work and learning more and kind of, like I said, the framework that I've gotten for folks to read, you can get a lot of that for free. Just
Hmm.
download it off the website.
Correct.
The stories behind it are what are interesting. That's what I put in the book.
Absolutely.
That's fun to read, but you know no matter what you do, I think you should be asking yourself some of these
Hmm.
questions.
Very interesting. I have time for two more questions for you. What are three simple steps an owner can take tomorrow to start applying the principles? And one you've already told me, you got to take time out and read them.
Right. That's very important. Go figure out what they are.
Yes.
Um, I would ask yourself in a space on positioning,
Mm,
right? Who are the customers that you love to have and want to see more? And which are the customers that if you don't have space in your
mm,
business,
mm.
that you're okay if they go somewhere else,
Right.
right? Go and find the differences in your head and maybe even write it down and say, maybe it's a restaurant. You say, look, I like the folks from the neighborhood. I don't want the out-of-towners, right? Or I don't want people coming. I don't like those people who come in and who are price shopping
Mm.
compared to the people who come in and want to talk to me about the goods and learn about the goods.
Yeah.
Go and find your boundaries. Just think about who you really, really want to serve.
Mm,
And if that's all you did and sat down, you spent some real time thinking about it and use words to describe them, don't just kind of picture them in your head.
mm.
You can come out of that exercise, just that one exercise, with an ability to make different decisions on your day-to-day work. Like, oh,
Mm.
what am I doing? Well, I'm doing this thing because I'm going
Yeah.
to get more customers. Well, wait, what kind of customers are they? Oh, they're the customers I don't want to get. Maybe I don't want to do that thing,
Mm.
right? Maybe I can drop this because who really cares about me doing X, Y, or Z?
Yeah.
You will have a better sense of who you're pleasing and who you don't need to please
Mm.
just by that one thought exercise.
Well said. And my last question for you, Sri. How do you see the future of small businesses evolving over the next few years, especially with new technologies like AI and so much more?
I'm an optimist. I think small businesses can amplify themselves
Yeah.
and do so much more now that AI is there.
Mm.
Here's a simple but crazy analogy. Um, all these big corporations have call centers. They can handle these service online. They ship people off to the Philippines, to India, from the U.S. or into even Latin America, because you just got these armies of people to answer the phone. Well, no
Mm.
small business owner is sitting there thinking, how do I build a call center? Now the AI is out. All these big companies are like, how do I shrink my call center? How do I get this all done with AI? How do I
Yeah.
go and get rid of all these people? The small guy should be thinking, how do I have a call center now? How
Mm.
do I go and set something up
Yeah.
where I can do more, right? Even though I don't need to hire people,
Mm.
I can do more because I've got access to technology that can do cool and big things. How do I make myself bigger or how do I amplify myself
Mm.
with AI is what I want all these small business owners to think. Now, you've got to go back to those principles though, around positioning and proximity and
Yeah.
purpose,
Mm.
because don't amplify everything. Amplify your specific position. Amplify in a way that keeps that proximity with your customers,
Mm.
right? Still fulfill your purpose, but AI can help you amplify that for
Well
sure.
said. Well said. And on that note, Sri, I just want to say what a fabulous conversation this has been for me. Your journey, your learnings, starting with McKinsey and working with so many other companies. And then we covered some amazing ground on almost like a 101 for small business strategy when you spoke about your book, Unconvention, a small business strategy guide. I hope many, many people will pick up your book and read it. I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go ahead and look for Sri Kaza's book. Thank you again for speaking to me and good luck to you.
All right. Thanks, Ashish. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.